Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. My name is Alfonso Saldaña, and I have the honor to serve as Mutual Men's National Co-Director. And I'm joining you all this evening from Brownsville, Texas, the southernmost tip of Texas, along the U.S. border with Mexico. And Brownsville sits on the ancestral lands of the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe. So I want to begin by acknowledging and honoring the original stewards of this land. And I also want to thank you all for taking the time of your evening to be here with us. We are really excited.
I don't want to.
Sorry. Yeah, if everyone could mute yourself, we're gonna have a session for Q&A towards the end. Um, but yeah, we're expecting to have a large turnout. We have over 269 people registered for tonight's conversation, which tells me that there's a wide interest in this, especially as this is spreading across the country. But just a few quick housekeeping items. Again, please mute yourself while the speakers present. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from and how you're doing today. And you can submit questions in the chat for the panelists. We're going to try to address all of them or as many as we can at the end. And like I said, we're going to allow for Q&A. You may unmute yourself if you want to raise a question yourself. But most importantly, we hope that tonight's discussion sparks ideas and inspires you to think about how this work can take root in your own community. And before we begin, I would like to just take a few moments to ground ourselves in why are we here tonight. No matter where you fall in the political spectrum, many of us share a common frustration, and that is the sense that our political system is far more responsive to the concentrated wealth and mega corporations than it is to ordinary people. And at Mutual Men, we believe that this is not accidental. It is the result of judge-made constitutional doctrines that have transformed corporations into entities that have constitutional rights that treat money as political free speech, and they can pretty much dictate the course of elections. For more than 15 years, Mutual Man has worked to pass the We the People Amendment, which would make it clear that constitutional rights belong to human beings only, and that money is not free speech and should be regulated in elections. At the same time, we have always recognized the importance of strategic stepping stone and allianceships that reforms that can provide immediate relief while helping build momentum towards deeper structural change. That is how we view the Transparent Election Initiative, also known as the Montana Plan, as Mutual Men's official position, which you can find on our website. It initiates how significantly this can reduce corporate spending in elections by changing state corporate charters, while also educating people about the fundamental democratic principle that corporations are created of people throughout state law and should remain subordinate to the public interest. At the same time, it is important to not oversell the initiative while still highlighting its importance. It's been even if adopted in the 50 states, it will not end big money in politics, but and wealthy individuals will still be able to spend unlimited amounts of election in the elections process, and corporations would continue to retain many constitutional rights that harm people, communities, and the natural world. That is why we often say that the Transparent Election Initiative offers immediate relief by reducing corporate dark money in elections. The We the People Amendment offers complete relief by abolishing the constitutional doctrines that make corporate rule possible in the first place. In other words, we need both. We need political reforms that reduce corporate power today, and we need a constitutional amendment that permanently restores the authority of people or the corporate entities that we create. So tonight we are here to explore how these efforts are complement to each other, and in fact, this conversation could not have been more timely, as just last week, the Hawaiian legislature became the first in the nation to pass a bill based on the same legal theory behind the Transparent Election Initiative. And if signed into law by Governor Josh Green, the measure would prohibit corporations from spending money in Hawaii. state elections. This would be a historical vote that demonstrates that this is more than a theoretical idea. It is already gaining traction and helping states reclaim the authority over the corporate entities that they create. So, without further ado, we are fortunate to be joined tonight by an outstanding group of panelists. And I'm going to start with Tom Moore, who is a senior fellow of the Democratic Policy Team at the Center for American Progress. And if you don't mind, I'm going to start spotlighting you guys. Yeah, so he works on campaign finance, corporate power, and structural democracy reform. He previously served as senior counsel and chief of staff to the former Federal Elections Commission chair. And Tom has served 2 terms on the Rockville, Maryland City Council, chaired the Common Cause Maryland Board, worked as a litigator at Latman and Watkins, and spent 8 years as a journalist covering politics and Congress. He's a graduate from Davidson College and Georgetown University Law Center. And we are also joined by Jeff. Let me see if I can find you real quick. Um, Here we go. So adding spotlight. Jeff Mangan is the founder of Transparent Election Initiative and is a dedicated team-oriented leader with more than 35 years of experience in both the public and private sectors. He previously served as a Montana State Representative and State Senator from Great Falls and was Montana's 12th Commissioner of Political Practice from 2017 to 2023. Jeff holds a bachelor's in elementary school education and from the Montana State University Northern and studied alternative dispute resolution at Humboldt State University. We're also joined by Sue Kermeyer. And let me find you real quick, Sue. Welcome to the panel, adding spotlight. Hi, Sue. Sue Kermeyer is a longtime Move to Amend supporter and a leader with Montana's Move to Amend in the wake of Citizens United. Sue helped make Montana one of the first states to fight back. She was part of the effort behind Montana's 2012 ballot initiative, which passed 75% of the voters and won a majority in every county. In recent years, Sue has led efforts to pass resolutions in the Montana legislature calling on Congress to enact the We the People Amendment. Sue strongly supports the Transparent Election Initiative and sees it as an important source of hope and momentum. She believes that the initiative provides immediate relief by reducing corporate money in elections, while the We the People Amendment offers a complete and permanent solution. Sue's message is simple. These two strategies are stronger when working together. Um, we're also joined, let me find Talia. Here we go. We're also joined by Talia Paleogu. Sorry for the butcher. Talia grew up in Seattle metro area. She moved to Gainesville, Florida to get her master's in physics. She's now working to blunt corporate power in the state of Florida. In her spare time, she enjoys reading, hiking, and spending time with her cats and dogs. And so, with that, I would like to now help set us the stage. We're going to begin with Tom, who will provide us a little overview of the Transparent Election Initiative, where it came from, how it works, and why this approach could offer a meaningful opportunity to challenge corporate influence at the state level. So, thanks, Tom, for joining us tonight, and the floor is all yours.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to explain what's going on. Basically, for the last 16 years, we have been told that the only way to get past Citizens United was to either do a federal constitutional amendment or to wait for a new Supreme Court that would rule some other way. And it turns out there is another way to do it. And it uses tools that have been sitting in states' toolboxes for more than a century. They just haven't touched them. They're no less powerful than they ever were. They're just dusty. And what it boils down to is 3 things that are in state law. Every state has a provision that says, hey, we create our corporations and we give you all the powers, and we can change up those powers at any time or get rid of you altogether at any time. And those started coming in the 1840s in state laws. And the Supreme Court has said consistently since that time that states have absolute power to do that. The second thing is that anything that we change affects existing corporations as well as new corporations. And the Supreme Court has said that what that means is every corporation that's out there is on notice that if the state changes up their powers, that could happen. They can't complain about it if it does happen. And the third thing, and this is what really makes this approach work, is that every state has a provision in their law that says no out-of-state corporation can exercise any power in this state that a domestic corporation can't exercise. So if you got to treat everybody equally, that's federal law, that's the Constitution and the Commerce Clause and all those good things. But as long as you're treating everybody equally, you don't run into any problem there. So basically, the way this works is all a state has to do to get corporate and dark money out of its politics is to say, oh, we're no longer extending the power to spend in our politics to the artificial persons, however you want to frame it, that operate within our state. And that's it. You're not regulating them. You're not banning anything. You're not restricting anything. You're redefining what these corporations are. And they are now, if you pass this, entities that don't have the capacity to spend in politics. There's an example that I like to use on this. It's whether humans have the power to fly. Do you and I have the power to flap our arms and fly? And the answer is no. Birds, bats, they were given the power to fly by their creator. We were not given that power. We're defined as entities that do not have the capacity to fly. But if the Supreme Court came to us tomorrow and said, hey, congratulations, good news, every one of you has a constitutional right to fly, I don't think any of us would go to the roof and give it a shot, because whatever a court says about your right to do something, it doesn't have anything to do with the reality of the situation. It doesn't change the reality of the situation. And we just can't do it. We're not given that power by our creator. Same thing goes for corporations. If a corporation, starting January 1st, no longer has the power to spend in politics, whether it has a right to do it or not is kind of beside the point. So that's how it works. And most states' laws are worded just about the same. Every state has this power. Every state has reserved this power to make the changes. This is rolling in 2 states right now. We had bills going in 14 states this year. Most of them, just like first-year bills do, didn't get very far. Hawaii is the exception, and it has kind of a great story there. And they're very close to enacting it there. But the state that started this first is Montana. And Montana has been the inspiration for pretty much every other state that has launched this. And Jeff is if this reform happens in this country, it's going to be because Jeff Mangan has been dispensing blood, sweat, and tears for the last year and a half to make this happen. And I look forward to everybody's questions on this. But that is the theory behind all of this.
Yeah. You're too kind, Tom. But just remember, just because you're in the airport doesn't mean you can fly. So.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, that was an excellent analogy and a very comprehensive overview. And next, we're going to be hearing from Jeff, who will share how organizing around this initiative look for Montana and the success, challenges, and lessons that they've learned that might be helpful to others around the country. So, Jeff, the floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, thanks for the invitation. Like I put in the chat, we've been looking forward to this for a long time. We've been, Sue's on the panel here. I see other folks from Montana in the chat, and Sue was one of the first folks that reached out that we had a discussion with when I first started going around the state talking about getting this done in Montana, and Sue has been just a great help and an early supporter, and so I'm just pleased that we're on a panel together. So my little shout out to Sue. It's really simple. Why Montana? The little story at the background, just a little bit. Tom and I have known each other since I was in the commissioner's office in Helena, Montana, and Tom was in the commissioner's office in DC with Commissioner Weintraub, and we became friends and have kept that friendship up for all these years. And he reached out a couple of years ago and basically said, I've got this white paper I'd like you to read. And it was on the mechanism which eventually became the Montana Plan, and in caps terms, the corporate power reset. I read it and just literally called him up that night and said, we're doing this in Montana and we're starting tomorrow. And that's literally how it started. It's that important to, I think it's that important to folks like myself and others who have been in the space for a long time. Tom, of course, has been working on this for a number of years. Sue and probably a number of folks on this call are in that same boat. So it was so important, we decided we have to do it in Montana. Reason Montana has this long history of battling money in politics and battling corruption. We were one of the first states back in the early 1900s to pass by citizens' initiative the Corrupt Practices Act of 1912, which banned corporate spending in elections. And that stayed our state law all the way through 2012 when it was struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court after the Citizens United decision. We were the only state after Citizens United in 2010 of the 23 or so states that had anti-corporate spending laws or regulations on the books that decided to stick around and fight after Citizens United. And although it was a short-lived and short decision, that's just who we are. So Montana it's just the right place to start, and that's the reason we chose Montana. It's been an uphill battle. We've decided to do this. Not only am I concerned and have been concerned about money in politics, I'm also just concerned about where politics has gone in general. Whether it's just the environment or the way people treat each other and the way people talk to each other. This rise of this consultancy class that's in my opinion has just kind of embraced the money in this last 15 years that has come out. It's kind of in my view blinded folks as far as what they can actually do. Just the way we were doing it just a short few years ago prior to 2010. People have short memories, and I think we can get back there. So it was really important for us to launch this as a true grassroots bottom-up effort, working with people from across the state of Montana, getting citizens excited again about organizing. And it's just one of those issues that folks want to see happen. They want to see the end of Citizens United. They want to see the end of this type of spending in our politics. And when they hear about what we're doing with the Montana Plan, they see how other folks are getting excited about it. They're volunteering every day. They want to go out and help. So it's just been everything just kind of came together at the right time. We were able to get a statutory initiative on Montana's ballot. We did have a constitutional initiative that was finally approved, but the calendar is we're still working on the ballot statement with that through the courts, but our calendar is so short for signature collection in Montana. We've really just focused on getting the statutory initiative, the number of signatures we need to get the statutory initiative on the ballot, and that's currently what we're working on. As we speak, we have hundreds of trained volunteers in signature gathering deployed across the state. We haven't seen a unpaid truly volunteer signature gathering effort in the state for a couple of decades. There are at least 3 other petitions or initiatives that are attempting to be placed on the ballot that are all using paid signature gatherers. So there's I don't want to say there's a competition for gatherers, but there's lots of folks out there and it can get confusing for folks. So we've got a little bit of an uphill climb, but I tell you, the excitement still continues. We're about halfway of where we need to be. And we have about 4 or 5 weeks left to go. The excitement on the ground continues. We just had a national endorsement from Pete Buttigieg, who's actually going to visit Montana this Sunday and visit Butte and talk about the Montana plan and money in politics. So money in politics is once again is going to move to the national stage as far as discussion. And anytime we get folks like that talking about this issue and then this specific solution, I think is a good thing for us, and it's a good thing for everyone else. So my last comments, and then I'll move on, is while we started in Montana, it was always our goal to make sure that we extend outside of the state of Montana. And just because of the interest in this, we've had every state in the nation reach out to us to find out how they can start a Montana plan in their state. Many of which want to call it the Montana plan, which is just fine with us. It's kind of catchy and it's got a good brand. So we've started efforts working with other orgs in Pennsylvania. We're working with Talia and folks in Florida. We're working in Colorado and Washington, and of course, working to assist the efforts in the states that Tom talked about, and of course, pushing Hawaii. So just to say, this effort isn't just confined to Montana. We're working to ensure that we can assist across the U.S. And it's part of our DNA at this point. So with that, I will shut up. Thank you for allowing me to pontificate, and appreciate the invite.
Thank you, Jeff, and no worries. You can take all the time you need. And congrats on all the good work and excellent results you guys are yielding. And yeah, excellent foreshadowing. We'll be listening, hearing about the efforts that are being replicated in Florida. But first, I would like to hear from Sue, who is a longtime Move to Amend volunteer and someone who has been active in the effort on the ground in Montana. And I would love to hear any reflections on how this initiative complements the broader movement for the We the People Amendment. And if I may pose you a question, Sue, from working on the ground in Montana, where both strategies are active, what do you think is the interplay between the initiative to end corporate money and the call for a constitutional amendment?
Well, thanks. Yeah, this is really fun to be here today and to see all the participants. That's really great, gratifying. Great. Good job, you guys. Well, yeah, I think I'm really happy to be someone who can say, I believe in these guys, and I've been around Move to Amend since 2010, and I've always been just doing stuff this whole time. I've really picked it at that point. When I woke up the first morning after Citizens United, I just said, checkmate. They can't have the board the way they want it all of a sudden. And we need to make sure we change that playing field. So I think the main thing I want to say, the synergy between the two of them is pretty organic when you think about it. Just even the environment that we're in. I guess I should start my timer so I don't go on too long here. Bear with me a second. You know how that is. The environment really is important. And the life and the hope that you feel with the initiative called the Montana Plan is a really important part of what's going on. The other thing I really want to say about the team for the initiative is that I can really speak for the integrity and for the principled commitment to nonpartisanship that I see from Tom and especially from Jeff, because of course you've been the commissioner on political practices, and so you've worked with legislators in and from that angle, and that really shows. So I think the people who are heading it are in your states will be really important. That honest commitment to nonpartisanship. I've seen it in my own efforts around the initiative and around Move to Amend, that the more comfort and support a person will feel when they're speaking out from both sides of the aisle, especially the unexpected side of the aisle, the better it is. that you both are really inspiring support from both sides of the aisle, and they can be confident when they come forward. They won't just be left hanging. So I've been at panels where Republican legislators have a primary that they're facing because they aren't the perfect part for their party. And so it's costly when you come forward. And I'll tell you that if you get to work with them, you will love working with them, both Jeff and Tom. So as far as what I see about how they come together, aside from that synergy of both being in this field and both agreeing that the Citizens United decision is it's just a bad decision. It's just wrong in how it was made. That gives us our basic, that the tree we both come from, and I think that's really important. The thing about the initiative, I think, is that the constitutional amendment, the work we've been doing for a long time about corporations aren't people, and people feel it initially, like in 2012, it was 75% and a majority in every county, and that's Montana. So you're talking what can be very red, and Missoula, not very red. And that knowledge that people have, the initiative, I think, shows the nuts and bolts of why it isn't and how you make that happen. Just that it's palpable of how you make that true. Let me stop this. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that to me, there's a tricky part, and I think I've got a little time here to say a few things more. So, Alfonso, can we show at this point my little?
Yes.
Okay. So we're jumping right in then. Okay. For me, the tricky part is in messaging. And just from other work I've done with other groups across the state, they've really taught me, and as you have too, how important getting out in front with messaging is. And of course, Jeff and Tom have had really important messaging going on. So when I see it as coming from both these branches of the tree, whatever, maybe it's the roots, what I see is that that's going to be, I think that that's really important for people who are seeing the need for both these, that we make sure that we're out there in front and that we have the messaging coming through, because the media is going to run with some things. And the sooner we're out there, well, and of course, people against it are going to be having focus groups. So the sooner we're out there, the better. For instance, when we were protecting our Constitution in a couple legislatures back, messaging around, well, it's a great Constitution, don't mess with it. And I think that kind of messaging is going to be really important. So that's where I think any messaging that really can build both of us up is going to be important for two reasons. This might get in the weeds a little bit, so bear with me. I've been working closely in the legislature for 4 sessions, so that's 8 years. And what happens in the legislature is beautiful, and I encourage you all to put a call for the constitutional amendment in your legislatures, because it's exciting and it gives you a voice in there. It's really, really a good thing to have. But the logistics of it are that you're in the legislature, you're going to a committee, and chances are both the call for the constitutional amendment and the initiative will be like in the same committee at different times. So it's good to know that we have each other's back as far as that goes. They don't have to choose between one and the other, and that we're stronger than that we're together. And there's reasons for that. I took a little time, and these are not brainstorming ideas that you should necessarily go with. Because, it's just brainstorming and you have to do it yourself for your own state. But I think it's important to get that piece across, that they both have strengths and they're stronger together. They don't have to be the same strengths. But they have to be, they have to have a voice and a presence in the whole thing, because you'll find that there'll be a tendency, I think, for the people on the committee to wonder, what if we have this, why bother with that? And so that's why I think we want to know what they're hearing. And the other, well, you could look at this, but this is true too, not just for the legislature, but I think for the movements that are so important that will, I think, carry both this and the initiative and the call for the constitutional amendment. The social movements are what get amendments. I know from the webinar that Move to Amend had, talking about how the stronger that riding the waves of constitution of social movements is a lot of what happened in the progressive era and so forth. So that's where I think we can generate this support that can carry it up to the top. And we don't want to have an undertow that pulls one of us under. So if you can't read it, so this, I like the first one the best, that came from my friend Joe Lose, who may be here. Um, about why the initiative and the call for the constitutional amendment are an unbeatable team, and feel free to add your own. And during the meeting, I'd love to hear other people's ideas. So if your home is on fire, you don't grab just one hose, use everything you've got. The initiative and the call for the constitutional amendment work better together. The initiative and the call for the constitutional amendment come from the same tree. The Citizens United decision was wrong, is one of those branches, and the states have always had the right to decide on the powers of corporations. We need immediate relief by the initiative and complete relief by the call for the constitutional amendment. That sounded a little bit like a medication, but I can't think of the name of it right now. What is that one? It's pink. Pepto-Bismol. So, little humor. And then, oh, this one I like, but it's kind of long. Voters supporting the call for the constitutional amendment have always seen the truth about corporations as people. Now the initiative shows them the nuts and bolts of how to make that truth a reality. So that's where I hope we'll, at least as far as making this happen, think about how we lift us both up. Thanks. Yeah, that was long. Sorry.
No worries at all. So thank you for that. Let me just minimize this real quick. Okay, we're back in business. And thank you again for that, Sue. Now let's head to Florida. Talia has been doing incredible work there, laying the groundwork to build this effort in the state, and she brings tremendous creativity and energy to this work. Talia, can you share what inspired you to get involved and what you're hoping to build there in Florida?
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm very new to this campaign and I'm very grateful to work with and know Tom and Jeff, and I'm just meeting Sue, but I'm excited we'll probably work together in the future. Yeah, I mean, Florida is probably going to be one of the toughest places to get this done because right now we're focusing on the ballot initiative process, and it's Florida has some very restrictive laws around that. So if we can do it in Florida, you guys can do it in whatever state you are in. So if we have hope, you guys should have hope too. What inspired me to get involved was I want nationalized healthcare. Like I've had issues with insurance, and I want single payer healthcare, and that's not going to happen until we stop money in politics, because the private for-profit insurance companies are pouring a lot of money into policies that ensure that we don't have nationalized healthcare. So that's what got me inspired. I read a book called Hope for Cynics that I recommend to lots of people. He goes through a lot of reasons why you should not lose hope, why you should keep fighting, and the author gave some stories of some activists, and one was Katie Fahey, and she's an amazing activist from, I think it was Minnesota, one of the Midwest states, but she just, as someone with, oh, Michigan, yes, thank you. With someone with no political background, and I myself don't have any political background, she was able to organize a successful campaign to end gerrymandering in Michigan. And so that was very inspirational for me, and I want to do something similar. And I would like to use this campaign not only to blunt corporate power in Florida, but to get young people involved. I think a lot of people my age have lost a lot of hope and given up on democracy. And I would like to motivate them to go to the polls, keep fighting, and I'd like to bring humanity back into politics because I do think the corporate language and the corporate look has infiltrated even grassroots movements, and um, people, especially young people, don't see it. They kind of see campaigns like mine or like the one in Montana. They um, on first look they'll see it as part of the status quo, even though that's not what we're trying to break the status quo. But so yeah, I'm trying to inspire them. I'm trying to get them involved. It's going to be hard work, but I'm excited to do it. And also, yeah, Tom, Jeff, Sue, and Move to Amend, Jenny and Katie are awesome people who have been helping me. And so I think there's a lot of people who are excited to get this done. And again, if you're interested, the fact that we're trying it in Florida means you guys should try it in your states because I think Florida's probably going to be the worst one to try this out in. So, yeah.
Thank you, Talia. Yeah, excellent point. And now I would like to open it up for a broader conversation among all the panelists. And if I may, I will start. I have a few questions. Hope you guys had a chance to be on beforehand. They're pretty simple. Let's start with big picture. Why do you guys think so many people across the political spectrum feel that our political system no longer represents them? And I'm pretty sure that I already know the answer, but
Yeah, the basic reason is because our political system no longer represents them. That is why people feel that way.
yeah,
It's in the last 16 years since Citizens United, we've seen outside spending, not candidate spending, not party spending, outside spending just run away. And it's just like, and no one knows who's spending this money. No one knows who's putting these messages out there. And it's corrosive to our politics. And it kills people's faith that their voice matters and their vote matters and that anything matters. And Jeff has seen it up front and firsthand.
yep. Anybody else would like to comment on that? If not, I have a question for you, Jeff. Actually, you mentioned earlier bringing a lot of volunteers with different skills and coming from all over the political spectrum and everywhere, background-wise. So, what have you learned about bringing new people into this work, and what resources are most needed from your perspective?
I mean, that's a good question. Really, just I mean, sound kind of silly. Um, I just lots of patience and um, and I have to stay positive and motivated. So, um, it's this entire uh, this this wouldn't work the way we're doing it if it was led by folks that weren't sure. Well, like we're not going to. And it's part of the questions, and this isn't meant to be a criticism of anything, but it's well, why don't you wait until a different court, or why are you doing this? Isn't that court just going to slap it down? Aren't they just going to be focused on Citizens United or on the First Amendment anyway? And it's just it's just not in order to lead a group of volunteers and grassroots, and it's just my opinion. I have to know that we're going to win this. I have to know that we're going to be successful. I have to ensure that the folks that are working for just providing their time and wanting to bring whatever skill that they have to bring this to bear are just as important as me, or just as important as when I bring Tom in or anyone else. So that's it sounds silly, but you just have to recognize that volunteers are just you and me. We each have different skills. We need to be led, but led in a different way because we're not paying you. But I need to keep you excited. I need to keep you engaged. I need you to talk to your friends, neighbors, and family, and help me along this journey. And I've just been extremely blessed in Montana that they are doing that. So, yeah, I mean, as silly as it sounds, yes.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate the honest, blunt response. And I guess that makes a full circle to what Talia was mentioning earlier. And I guess a question to you, Talia, is how do we make structural reform feel exciting, creative, and accessible to younger generations in particular?
So, I mean, I have ideas, but I will say I'm not an expert on marketing. So, I'm trying to get artists involved. I'm trying to get like visual artists and musicians and dancers involved and to help sort of make an interesting social media presence and a website that kind of looks more fun and not. So it's kind of about the look, the aesthetics of it, from what I can tell, and trying to move away from what looks like corporate branding. But that, I mean, that's just my idea. I also have ideas about being a bit more radical in the messaging. I have to talk to more people about that because there is research about what's useful and not. And like you said, we don't want to make this appear partisan, but I do think I have some ideas about some more radical messaging that I think would appeal to younger people, people my age. But that's still kind of in the planning phase. So.
Exciting. Yeah, I would love to hear all of them.
Yeah.
And oh yes, Sue, were you gonna say something?
What it just occurred to me to say something about, I mean, I've seen, um, well, I've been going to a lot of the meetings that Jeff has, and I will speak on his behalf, meaning I'll corroborate just what a presence you have in those meetings that is really uplifting, Jeff, and just it it always is a relief when you step forward and say, okay, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, this is how we bring people in, and that positivity, it does carry a long ways. Because we're down to the really grunt work at this point, the community leaders around the state, and they do need that a lot. The one thing when you were talking about, Jeff, about um, needing to just keep people's spirits up about success. And to me, a lot of the success comes from just from the fact of that positivity that just affects the whole environment of the state, really. And it's contagious when you know that it's going on around the country too, that people do want this to change. And I think part of it that's important, at least when I think about it, is that the more of that we have, um, the more that we're a force to be contended with, because any effort by the courts or by legislatures, for instance, as a law, when we get through this, we will be in the legislature, and they should be very afraid, hopefully, of tampering with it when you've gotten past so many hurdles and you got through there and you tamper with that. And I think people will be really pissed. And to say, I guess that's not a bad word. So um, I just feel that's really important, that just the fact of what we are is a success for sure.
Yes, well said. Thank you, Sue. And talking about success, I have a question for you. But first, I would like to make a plug for any questions from the audience. If you want to drop them in the chat, we're gonna try to get to them. And Jenny, or Katie, if you don't mind, just keeping track of the questions for me, please. So talking about success, Sue, what would success look over the next couple years? You mentioned being involved in this for now 4 sessions. So what do you foresee for the next session based on the traction you've been seeing there on the ground?
Oh, well, well, let me, where we started with the resolution was very simply just talking to a favorite legislator time to do this. And she was willing to carry it, and off we went. Um, for me, having it be in the legislature was because I knew that when we got the resolution or the constitutional amendment, and eventually passed by Congress, it was going to come to the states for ratification. And I wanted our legislature to remember the 2012 initiative and to know their duty when it did come around would be to pass it. So they're just that being there and educating having a chance to talk across the aisle. How often do you get to talk to somebody who's truly read about what we have in common about basic democracy and listening to each other? So to me, just being in the legislature every time is the success, and bringing voices in about this issue is the success. When we've had success in the legislature, come the closest, it's when there's been an issue that was about basic well-being in the state, Medicaid expansion, property taxes, those kinds of things that make room for people from both parties to come together about some issue that matters. And that's, Talia, when you're talking about what it means to make healthcare for people, that's really important to people. So I think you're really on the right track. So for me, that's success is, and the more now we're reaching into statewide organizations too, because we're at the state level calling for the resolution, and that means that we're on a platform where we can reach to statewide organizations that have influence across the state. They haven't been willing to do some of what we want, Jeff, but they were supportive of the Constitution, and that made a difference. So, to me, that's part of the success is the reaching across the aisle and the energy, the voices.
Yep. Reintroducing legislation. It's a reminder that democracy is like a muscle that we need to keep exercising.
Muscles, yeah.
Alfonso, may I ask a few questions, please?
Yes, of course. I was
Okay.
Let
My
me.
background is a football coach, and you never go play football if you leave your bullets at home. All right. If you don't plan, you don't go hunting by leaving your bullets at home. So you don't go play a football game unless you know how you're going to conduct it. My question is, there were four things that happened just today. I'm sure I haven't looked at the news in the last 2 hours, all from Trump. The pool guy is basically a farce. All right. He doesn't have any part of painting the reflecting pool. We find out that Trump wants to build a hotel under his presidential library in Miami. Why are we not surprised? We find out that the Army is running out of training money. They can't now go and practice football or be in an army because they have no money to do it with, and not enough. The Australia hotel that the two sons were going to build and call it the Golden Trump Tower. The people over there say they don't want it there. Is there an organization in any organizations that you know of? I don't know of any that do this. Is it buried somewhere deep in the Democratic inner workings? Is there anybody that actually records all these things that happen each and every day, 7 days a week, that can bring it to one center that sends it out to all of us? I live in Pennsylvania. I don't know of any organization that tries to do that in particular. I'm looking for somebody that can do that, because all the things that Trump does to harm our country harms everybody in the country. And when I look at you two guys or three persons, I guess, from Montana, I'm surprised as hell because a long time ago I read that book, The Irishman. I don't know if I'm forgetting the name of the guy that got murdered, but you guys murdered that guy. Why did it happen? What can we do to bring all the information back to one center point that will then send it out to all 50 states? Does anybody know of an organization that does something like that?
Yeah, excellent points. And the first, well, the first and only organization that I can think of would be ProPublica, who does tremendous work documenting corruption, ethic violations, and conflict of interest. But at Mutual Men, we view this as essential, and we have an extensive library. We have a timeline also that documents every single time that rules have sided with corporations. So yeah, there might be some others that I'm not aware about, but those are excellent questions. And sorry, I missed your name if you stated it
Well,
again.
I'm not my wife. There it is. My first name is Booker, Booker. I was on your first show, which I enjoyed listening to people from the entire country talk. And I saw one or two persons that were from Minneapolis, one of the best cities in the world, and they just took what they were faced with and knocked it into the ground. They planned. I always feel that we who are really wanting to do the correct thing for our country, not a partisan thing, that we are not organized well enough to identify the two, three things, not more than that we
All right,
need to
we need to
convince.
stay on point. We have a lot of questions. I'm sorry.
Okay. Uh, I'm waiting for somebody to respond.
Maybe somebody can respond in the
Yeah.
chat, but thank
So,
you.
yeah, there are a number of groups. I mean, political, the corruption we're seeing out of Washington these days is unprecedented and has caught the attention of a lot of people. And there are a number of groups, including mine, that are paying pretty close attention to this and trying to craft solutions to this that can be brought up in the next Congress or in the next presidential administration. But it is, you're right. It's like it's a flood. And in some ways, this kind of gets back to what we're talking about here, which is, the essential corruption that Citizens United has inflicted on our politics is, it's this chase for money, it's this chase for dark money, it's this chase for corporate money. And, and you're not hearing from candidates anymore, you're not hearing from parties even, that it's all coming from these, shadowy interests that no one knows where the money's come from whatsoever. And if we can knock that back, we can make a lot of progress on all the other fronts.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for that, Tom.
Well put.
Also, another question that was brought up in the chat, might reframe this. I'm gonna read it. Might reframe this to be how we can guard this against the Supreme Court. That is the question. Do we need an amendment which has proven difficult, or is there a way to safeguard this through legislatures? Something like oh, my bad. Sorry. I'm just reading what was forwarded to me. So question, wouldn't every state version of the Montana plan have to be designed to be Supreme Court proof? And wouldn't that task be different in each state's case? I trust that the people working on these efforts are focused on this, right?
Yes, we are indeed focused on that. So what's interesting about it is that most states' laws are actually very, very similar when it comes to this. The three things I mentioned are in every state's laws in one way or another in all 50 states. And what's more important is the authority of the states to create and define as corporations, that has just been laid out by the Supreme Court as something that every state has. So either, what Jeff's trying in Montana, what Hawaii is trying, either it's going to work everywhere or it's not going to work anywhere. But it will be a matter of drafting it state by state. But it's actually fairly, most states have a Model Business Corporations Act version that they have written their laws from. And so there's not actually even all that many different variations within state laws. But that is something that we're spending a lot of time thinking about. But if the basic structure of this is upheld, it should be upheld everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll just point out too that we're literally talking about just corporations, any corporation. The beauty of this, Tom touched upon it, is that there are no loopholes. There are no carve-outs for our friends or folks that we think might be good or might be doing some good things. So it treats it's the same for for-profit corporations, C corps, S corps, LLCs, nonprofits, C3s, which shouldn't be in the space in the first place, C4s, the conduit for all the dark money, associations, unions, etc. So it treats everybody the same, and that's paramount. And then, of course, what we're doing is they will not be able to spend in politics. So we're not regulating something that's already there. We're not setting a limit. We're not saying that there's going to be a threshold. All of that won't matter because those corporations will not be able to spend in our politics. So, there's a mindset around, particularly with, folks that want to oppose this, they want to go to, well, we've tried this. It's this regulation. It's this. And we just have to remind people that we've been regulating or setting rules on a power the states, every state in the union has already given their corporations. So in that aspect, the way the court has looked at it, that they've been right. So we're looking at it under a different lens. Move from the First Amendment to the 10th Amendment. Each state has this authority to do that, absolute. And they're not going to have that power in the first place. There won't be a power to regulate, to set a rule upon. It won't exist. And it's just a whole different sphere to look. It'll be in corporate law, looking at here. And folks just have a really hard time, particularly the opponents, wrapping their arms around that because they just want us to focus on the speech argument. So when we take it from the speech argument to that state's authority to change the foundational way corporations are chartered in their state, it makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. Thank you. And yeah, I think the recent action in Hawaii with the legislator passed the first bill in the nation based on this legal theory is a strong indication that this approach is being taken seriously and is gaining traction. And I think the bottom line is we should pursue every viable strategy to reduce corporate power today while still recognizing that the most Supreme Court proof or durable safeguard is a constitutional amendment. I see another question that just came in, and that is there a legal fund for dealing with the corporation's challenges to the initiative, or has the ACLU stated whether or not they will help?
So, the Transparent Election Initiative, which Jeff is working on, is going to be one of the hubs to defend this. If they pass it in Montana and it gets challenged, TEI will be able to intervene and actually actively run the defense of the measure, which is great. And that's going to make a really big difference. So they'll be spending some money on that. I don't know of any other organization that is raising money for that. Mine is not. We are trying to round up legal representation for this. There's great groups like the Campaign Legal Center, which have stepped up and said they will help defend this. The ACLU is kind of in a funny position here. They actually wrote an amicus brief on behalf of Citizens United in the Citizens United case. They see corporate speech, they see money of speech, they see corporate speech is just okay, can't be regulated under the First Amendment. I think I'm trying to make the case to them that this is not regulation. This is entity design. This is what does the state decide to create, and how does it decide to create it? And that is not that does not implicate the First Amendment. We'll see. But they are, God bless them, absolutists on the First Amendment, and have been on what a lot of people would consider to be the wrong side of a lot of corporate money and speech issues. But this one, because it's not a regulation, it may actually we may actually get them on board. We'll see. But if you're a member of the ACLU, reach out. Please reach out to the board and reach out to the organization and tell them you'd like them to consider this.
Yep, right on. Thank you, Tom. All right. Another question I see here in the chat. Since this affects unions, has the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industry Organizations, AFL-CIO, come out for or against this? And then it goes, I was thinking of asking them for help in getting signatures. Yeah, I think that would be great. Any responses to that?
Labor is wary about this. It would be the major. They embraced Citizens United pretty heavily because they had to, and they would have to make a major change again to the way they do business and raise money. Nobody likes to do that, so it's not something that labor is embracing. I think once they really take a look at it and look what the long term would look like, I think they'll see that they'll do just fine. But it's not something that labor is jumping on board with right off the bat.
Thanks, Tom. Trying to make sure I don't miss any of the questions. If anybody has questions, feel free
Put a
to drop
doc in
them.
the chat, Alfonso, in your personal chat too.
Oh.
Questions from chat. I can share it again for you.
Thank you. I was not looking at the agenda right now. Let me make sure I just okay. I see one here, a good one from John Fioretta. First, the idea behind the Montana plan is brilliant. Second, thank you for all your work. Third, which is the question, the version of the Montana plan introduced in the California legislature recently failed to receive a vote to get out of its first committee hearing because several good government groups, including the League of Women's Voters and Common Cause, testified that it would unduly restrict their political activity. Your response?
I'll jump in there, then Tom can.
Yeah.
It's similar to what Tom just talked about with unions. We're talking about basically a wholesale change of how folks have worked in politics in this last 15 years since Citizens United. And there's some interpretation by folks that consider, consider what they're doing. I've heard this, that people told me, but our dark money is good money, is good dark money. And so, and we understand the work that they're doing. But it's, so in order for this to work, we have to treat everybody the same. Everybody has to be treated the same. As soon as we start making carve-outs for specific groups or folks we like, it doesn't work. It will be found unconstitutional or be challenged on those grounds. So our response to that is simple. They'll still be able to participate in campaigns, whether it be for ballot issues or for candidates. The only difference will be you won't be able to accept a check written by a corporation, whether that corporation is a for-profit corporation or a nonprofit corporation through a C4 or other organization. And that's just difficult for some folks to wrap their arms around in this, particularly in this last 10 years, where they've had to raise so much money to battle the money that the other people are raising. There's this idea as well that, well, we'll play by the rules. There's nothing to say they're going to play by the rules. So why should we give up? And it's this kind of circular firing squad in a sense. And, it's just hard to break that cycle. But there was a time when all of this corporate money was not, and this dark money was not in our politics, and it was only a short 16 years ago. If anybody, looks at the data, while there was some spending, it wasn't anything near what's been spent in the last 16 years, and particularly, it's almost doubling in this last, every 4-year cycle. Now it's, we had this really straight line for literally 100 and some years, and then shot up. It literally goes like that. Now it's going like this. It'll continue to do that. And the only way to break that is to stop that spending and get back to where I want to raise money from Sue and from Tom and from John and from Jenny and from whoever those individuals are. And we're going to take that money and we're going to spend it and we're going to create campaigns and we're going to work on the issue and or the candidate that we really believe in. And we're going to do it by talking to our friends and our neighbors and everything else. And folks just do not want or think they can get there. And it's unfortunate, but if we're to save this, we have to do it, in my opinion.
Great.
And yeah, I would
Get off my
just
soapbox.
also add that, if you just look at the state of things, you look at the policies that have been enacted as that dark money has been blowing up, the good dark money is losing. Whatever amount they think they're raising is for good, it is constantly for playing defense and they're losing. So I think all you have to do is say, you're losing, and the only solution is to stop this system and build something new. That's what I would tell someone if they think that they're on the good side with the good dark money.
Yeah, love that framing. Thank you, Talia.
Yeah.
And thank you, Jeff. Yeah, I'm also loving the engagement and all the questions. So this one is a great one, I think. Does anybody know of any free legal services or websites to help with the legal language for drafting a ballot initiative?
Um,
I think we put in the chat, just talk to Tom or myself. We can get you
yeah,
pointed in the right direction.
we are
We've got
the
it all ready.
drafting's we got it all ready to go. Jeff and I have been doing a ton of drafting this last year and a half.
Love it.
Shopping.
Sorry. I didn't get to see who was that, but if you have a question, feel free to unmute. All right. Yeah, there is another one here. Could you address the SCOTUS decision which struck down the Montana legislation that was Montana's state effort to push back on the disastrous Citizens United decision around 2010, 2011-ish? And that is addressed to either Jeff or Tom, whoever wants to take that one on.
Well, Tom's the attorney, but I can actually take a stab at this. They literally just used the Citizens United decision that we were regulating this free speech of those corporations, and that's what got it tossed out. So nothing more glamorous than that. They slapped us down in a half-page summary. So saying, yep, Citizens United rules. Goodbye, Montana.
Yeah, and the kind of the violence with which they did that was one of the inspirations for this kind of approach, which is like, look, don't go to regulation, don't go to bans, don't go to the whole campaign finance law side of things. You have to go to this corporate power side, and it's nothing like the Montana law that was struck down before.
Thank you both. This next one is addressed to you, Tom, and it is, where would a person look in their state's law, whether that provision exists, whether the provision exists that allows the state to restrict corporations from spending money in politics?
So the component parts are in every state's laws, and I actually dropped a spreadsheet into the chat there that if you're interested in what your state says about it. But no state right now has it in the laws that they've disempowered their corporations to spend it in politics. Hawaii might well be the first. Montana will almost certainly be this year because of all the hard work everybody's doing out there. And let's check with us in 2027. We'll point to you to some state laws.
Yep, thank you. Sticking on that lane, is there a legal distinction or concern on states limiting non-persons entities spending on local versus national elections? And again, I'm not an attorney, but I think there is. But would any of the panelists like to address that?
I'll take this one again. I'm sorry. Actually no. This is
No?
one of the odd things where state law change can actually make a difference on federal level activity, because states get all of their powers. I'm sorry, corporations get all their powers from the states. They get their power to spend in local elections from the states. They get their power to spend in state elections from the state. They get their power to spend in federal elections from the state. And so if the state doesn't give them that power anymore, then they don't have the power. So, if Montana passes this, no corporation that is either chartered by Montana or operates as a corporation in Montana will be able to spend in Montana's ballot issues or their local, state, or federal elections. And it is kind of wildly powerful, but what it really gets back to is the power that the states have in creating and defining and redefining these corporations.
Fascinating. All right, I'm trying to make sure I don't miss any other questions. I think we're down to the last two. Does this right to regulate a corporation extends to PACs or other forms of associations?
Um, again, it'll affect all corporations, including associations and those types of things. PACs, political action committees, are the vehicle that um, political action committees will still exist. All a political action committee is two or more individuals getting together to support a candidate or an issue. That won't change. So in its purest form, a PAC, if Tom and I, Tom's coming out to Montana tomorrow, he's flying here tonight. Tom and I want to um, save a piece of public land through ballot initiative or something in Montana. We could start to save the Hidden Lake initiative. And we can start raising money from individuals. Under the Montana plan, we can do that all day long and spend that money on that initiative for that purpose. But what wouldn't happen is corporations, whether they be a for-profit or nonprofit, association, union, et cetera, would be unable to write a check from their general fund into our Save the Hidden Lake initiative PAC. I mean, trying to, and I've simplified it a bit, but so PACs serve a purpose. Unfortunately, super PACs and the way PACs have been spending and all these other things, they've, people think they need to be done away with too, and there might be a place for that, but in its purest form, it is the vehicle that Tom and I can get to work on saving that hidden lake, or Thalia and Jenny can get to work on saving that swamp in Florida or whatever it might be, or supporting a favorite candidate through independent expenditure. I mean, as long as it's and they'll be fully disclosed and fully transparent, and that's what we want. We want to be able to make. We want to look it up, make informed decisions on issues and candidates, and be able to find out who is providing the funds for those type of races. And while we think we have disclosure and transparency now, we do to a certain extent, but we don't because of C4s and dark money spending and of course a number of other things. But I digress.
Thank you, Jeff. The last question I see here, I think is addressed to multiple men, and that is, they would like to know if why we don't work directly with public citizen, and are we on the same line? And yeah, the short answer is yes, we are on the same line, and we have the same goals ultimately, which is to limit uh, money in politics. We might emphasize different strategies, but we see their work as complementary to our own. The longer explanation is that um, we differ on primarily our long-term strategy. A public citizen generally focuses on reforms such as campaign finance law, ethics rules, disclosure requirements. Meanwhile, Mutual Man focuses on the constitutional amendment, which is HR 54, and we believe that the underlying problem is based on the constitutional nature right now, how things are structured. Um, so yeah, great question. Let me make sure I'm not missing any.
Yeah. And in terms of Public Citizen and the Montana Plan, they were one of the first groups to endorse. They jumped out early. They and Issue One and Free Speech for People and Citizens United are among the groups that have endorsed it. So it's Public Citizen's been with Jeff and the effort there from the very beginning.
Great.
They haven't endorsed the We the People amendment as well, just on the
I actually I see a question in the chat that I think is really good because I was wondering about that when I first got involved, and I think Tom's answer would be helpful. What do you tell people who are concerned about losing corporate bid? Like, the argument against this might be that like, oh, well, then corporations are no longer going to want to charter in this state. And so what would you say to that?
Yeah, Jeff's got very good information on this too. But basically, you're a huge corporation, you're already chartered in Delaware. And if you're chartered in Montana, it's because you're doing business in Montana. And if you want to spend in politics, you want to spend in Montana politics. So if Montana were to pass this and you move to Wyoming, that doesn't help you because you still don't get to spend in Montana politics because everybody's out of Montana politics. So it's, most states have lost the chartering race already and then just kept the rules as if they were still playing that game and they're not. But the thing I said in the chat was there are lots and lots of reasons to incorporate in one state versus another, but the ability to spend in politics is not one of them. Nobody could do it 17 years ago, and there are plenty of corporations chartered in Montana, even though they couldn't spend in Montana's politics. But it's not impossible to change your state of incorporation, but it's not nothing either. It's a big pain.
Thank you. And thank you, Telly, for catching that and raising that question. I would like to make a last call for any questions from the audience. Feel free to unmute yourself or just type it in the chat.
There was a question, one more question in there, Alfonso, in that document.
The document. Let me see. Oh, okay, I see. I just stop off in the time. Is this the one, Jenny? The one you're highlighted? I just stop off in a town hall meeting with Eric Sorensen. During this meetup, he needed to somehow bring this man into Mutual Man's loop. It is so important. New reps don't seem to know where to go. Don't see the question in that, but
reach out to Representative Pramila Jayapal, the representative, and let them know they want to come on as a co-sponsor for the We the People Amendment, HJR 54. And if he's running for office, we have a pledge campaign where he can commit to introducing and supporting this legislation if he comes into office.
Yeah, that's a great catch. Sorry, I wasn't sure if this was a representative, but I see he is. Cool. Yeah, definitely. That's the right direction to go. Let me see. Sorry, I have two screens, so I'm having to check, make sure I don't miss any questions. But it seems like we addressed all of them.
If you have two raised hands, Shelley and Kim.
Yes, go ahead, Shelley. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. What's to stop the Supreme Court from overturning more of their own precedents about powers they previously left to the states?
Yeah, the way I've thought about this is, to them, this will be like eating a spider. And I'm never going to convince them that they're going to enjoy eating that spider. But I can convince them that they would rather eat the spider than drink a glass of battery acid, because all the damage that they would have to do, fundamental foundational damage to corporation law, would be hugely destabilizing. And they don't like that. They don't want that. That is bad for business. It's not because they're good judges. It's not because they're good people. It's not because of any of those things. It's because flipping this would do more damage to their interests than maintaining it would be. And at the end of the day, you don't have to overturn a single precedent to sustain this. It doesn't interfere with any precedent they've ever done. And you would have to tear up huge amounts of law that they love, including a lot of federalism, in order to get at this. So it's not just like, can they overturn it? Sure. But will they be willing to pay the price of overturning it? That is what we are working on for the next year or so to make sure that we show them all the different ways that they don't want to. So that's the best answer we've got on that.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Jeff, for a great answer and yet another great analogy. Kim?
I'll just say, just so because I know there's lots of questions, and we've done this before. Feel free just to go ahead and email tei@transparentelection.org with any question. Like I said, Tom's going to be here for a week. We're going to have lots of time together, and I'll want to keep him busy. So no, but no, we will work to answer every question that you might have. So please time is short, and we're probably zooming through answers and things like that. Please feel free to not only visit the website, but just email us, and we will respond and get your question answered.
Yes. Yes, definitely. We'll try to get all the questions. We'll set the chat and forward all the questions that may not have get answers. But go ahead, Kim.
I've been following the Existential Republic with Chris Armitage, and he's been drafting some legislation, and one is called Corporate Welfare Integrity Act, which I think is kind of in line with what we're talking about here. And I don't know this stuff the way you guys know this stuff, but I'm curious if you know of that, if you've seen it, and is it in line, and how is it similar or different?
You may not follow this stuff the way we do, but you've heard of something I haven't. So I responded to you in the chat, and I'll Google it. That's fine, but send it via email. Largely because of Jeff's efforts. This has popped up everywhere, all over the country. We would like, I was happy when states were picking it up, but the way we found out was we would. Bills would get dropped in states, and we're like, oh, where'd that come from? And we'd call them up and say what happened, and they said, oh yeah, we saw it with what was going on in Montana, and we thought we wanted to do it here too. So it's actually kind of this terrific viral organic spread of this idea. So I would not be surprised if it's something like what Jeff's working on. But I will check it out. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yes, definitely. Me too. I was not familiar with the Corporate Welfare Integrity Act, but from the Mutual Man lens, the way we approach anything is, does this reform help reduce corporate power? And if it does it help build momentum towards the larger structural change that we need? And if so, we support. But yes, excellent. Thank you for bringing that up to our attention. Oops, gotta pop up again. So, all right. So I want to thank all the panelists again for sharing your insights and experience. And I want to thank you, the audience, for the warm interactions and all the very thoughtful questions, and for joining us tonight. Just a few quick housekeeping items. We are gonna be having an event in DC called 7 Days in DC, where organizers are going to be joining from all over the country. And they're going to be coming together to, one, lobby Congress, and also build relationships and strengthen the growing movement. And this is going to be from the 28th, right, Jenny, to the 5th of July. So if you are in the area, the 4th, my bad. So if you guys...
Culminating on the 4th of July, it's going to be...
It's going to be very powerful. So if you guys are in the area and want to join, we're going to be sharing the link to that, as well as the links to sign the petition and support the We the People Amendment in case you are new to this, and how you can also volunteer to either pass a local initiative, try to lobby your representative, at any capacity that you might be interested in volunteering. We are more than happy to meet you halfway and guide you throughout the process. And also, we're going to be sharing how to connect with the Transparent Election Initiative Act. And the recording of this will be available as soon as possible in a follow-up email along with the resources mentioned tonight. Um, so yeah, if anybody else wants to give closing remarks, feel free to the panelists. But again, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here with us tonight.
I just want to just give a shout out to Move to Amend. You guys have been fantastic to work with. We really saw each other. I think we may not have said it in these terms, but early partners. From locally Sue and the local teams here in Montana to not much later a specific endorsement from Move to Amend for what was happening in Montana for the Montana chapter stuff to our work in Florida with Jenny and this group to tonight. So just thank you and keep up the good work. And we really appreciate it. Thank you for all that you do.
Yeah, and one of the striking things is we've gone to a lot of different groups that have been out there working in this area, and we'll say like, "Hey, we've got this new approach. Looks really solid. Looks like it can really work." And a lot of folks say like, "No, no, 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 no. We've got our thing. We're going to just do our thing, and we don't want to hear anything about your thing." It has been absolutely kind of just so encouraging to have Move to Amend, like leadership and the state folks and just all across the board looked at what Jeff's working on and what I've put out there. And you said like, oh, yeah, this totally mixes in with what we're doing. This is great. Bring it in. We'll go. And it's just that is what this movement needs a lot more of. And nobody's doing it better than Move to Amend.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, if one thing struck with me was what Delia mentioned, hope. I think that is a good way to end this conversation. This was very hopeful, and seeing it replicated across the country is encouraging. So again, thank you all, and I hope you guys, all of you, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for joining us.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you all. Love you.